Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar presentation on our Student Multicultural and Diversity Programs Office. My name is Meredith Call, and I am the Director for Off-Campus Student and Family Engagement, and I am here to serve as your moderator for today's presentation and to share some great tips and things about how to interact and engage with our presentation before we get started. So first of all, I just want to again say thank you so much for joining us for today's presentation. I know you've got a great presentation coming to you from our Director of Student Multicultural and Diversity Programs. But a few things about how today's session will work. We are so glad you're able to join us for our live session, whether it's through Zoom or through our Facebook Live presentation. Please note that throughout the day today, we want this to be interactive and engaging. And so we want you to make sure you're submitting your questions so that you can learn the most about the opportunities that are available to all of our UAB students. In order to submit your questions, we ask that you put your questions, if you're watching us via Zoom, in that Q&A box that you should see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And then if you're watching us in Facebook on the Facebook Live option, you can just put your questions into the comments section there because we are monitoring both sessions. Please be careful when you are putting out information for your questions that you're not putting out identifying information for your students, specifically meaning Blazer IDs, email addresses, anything along those lines, because we just want to make sure that we are maintaining the safety and security for all of our students and their personal information. So that's everything from me about how today is going to work. We're going to have some great conversations, I know, but I'm going to go ahead and invite our director, Dr. Chris Jones, to come online and share with us some great information about his session, or his office, I should say.
Thank you, Meredith. My name is Chris Jones. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the director for Student Multicultural and Diversity Programs here at UAB. I'm excited to be with you all today. I love the idea or the fact that we get a chance to engage with parents and families and tell them a lot more about opportunities for the students to be involved on campus. And so I look forward to sharing with you all a little bit more about our office. So I'm going to share a presentation with you all. Let's see. Take it here. All right, so I'll get right into and tell you a little bit more about our office. And so, of course, we are part of UAB Student Affairs here at UAB, and really Student Affairs mission is to provide an opportunity for students to connect to campus, particularly outside the classroom. Sometimes we do some activities and programs with students in the class. I'll talk about a little bit more during the presentation, but we really look to create a co-curricular experience for students within Student Affairs. And what we do through our office is try to create that experience around diversity and inclusion in a myriad of ways. So these are the hardworking folks in our office. Again, I am the director for the office. My job is to oversee the growth and development of our programs, activities, and services, as well as supervise a number of our staff. Additionally, I serve within leadership within the Division of Student Affairs with the other directors within the division. And so we all come together to figure out what are the best ways that we can support students on campus. Courtney Johnson is our assistant director. Her job is to really head up our education initiatives. So any of our diversity educations and trainings, she really is responsible for. In addition, she is headed up our LGBTQ programming as we received a lot of input from our LGBT students about their need and desire to create social spaces for them on campus. And so she's been really pivotal in terms of developing these programs and activities for students. Sharifa Whip is our mentor coordinator. So she works with two of our programs, in particular, our Black Male Retention Initiative, really a peer mentoring initiative, which I'll talk about a little bit more here shortly, as well as our international mentoring program, which is designed to support international students as they are transitioning to campus, as well as to the United States and to Birmingham. She additionally works with our Black Student Awareness Committee, again, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but they're a programming board designed to engage Black students on campus or engage issues that affect Black students here on campus. Rebecca Harkless is our coordinator for social justice education. Her job is to work with a number of our diversity initiatives, particularly around dialogue, and so just some of our broader efforts around diversity and inclusion. She is supervised by Courtney, and they work together on many of the initiatives that we have around diversity education. Jocelyn Pride is our administrative assistant in the office, and really she makes the office run and go from a day-to-day standpoint. So anything in terms of paying invoices, making sure like some of our positions students are paid for, so making sure that they're taken care of, and just making sure our office goes. And so she plays a pivotal role in terms of engaging students and connecting with students, and making sure that they have a great experience. This is our mission, and so we seek to empower, engage, and challenge students to increase their resiliency, first and foremost. So we understand that as student affairs professionals and as a multicultural office, that a big part of our job is to make sure that students are successful here. All of our students are going to encounter some challenges, some adversity at some point in time. That is life, and that is part of coming to college. And so we try to help them learn how to be resilient through their leadership experience in our office, and particularly support them in terms of being retained and headed toward graduation. And I'll pull out some specific quotes that kind of leads to that. Additionally, we look to develop them as global leaders as well. And so we are definitely in an ever-changing world, as well as a world that has become more globalized. And so the unique thing about being in our office and being at UAB, I would say, is that you get a chance to connect with a lot of people who are different from you. And so we really try to make sure that the students have that experience and not just say, oh, we have a lot of people who are different than myself here on campus, but actually get a chance to engage with those folks who are different from them. And so we facilitate that many times with our student leaders, as we will have them participate in a retreat for all of our student leaders every year. Obviously, because of COVID-19, we haven't been able to do that over the past year, but we look forward to doing that next year. And more importantly, we look to provide learning environments that value and respect underrepresented student populations through community building, education, and resources. And so one thing we really value about our office is that, yeah, we want to foster a sense of belonging for students, certainly make them feel like there's a place for them, but we also want to make sure that they're learning from their experiences of being in our office. And so their ability to be facilitators for an education initiative that we have can help them translate to being more effective educators in terms of their day-to-day operations. And so many of our students who are things like pre-med or want to go into some sort of health-related career often reference our office as opportunities for them to learn how to engage with others, particularly educating patients on their health. So they gain those skills by participating as student leaders in our office. These are just some of our general values. Of course, education. We are an institution of higher education, so that has to be on the forefront of what we do. We look to support equity on our campus. That is something that is part of our university's vision and mission, is to support equity. So we look to give students what they need in terms of their experience on our campus. Empowerment, again, I'm going to talk about our individual programs, but the empowerment piece is that most of our programs, well, not even most, all of them are ran by students, and advisors work with those students to help develop these programs and activities and implement them. And so students are at the forefront of everything that we do in our office. Self-awareness. And so if anyone is talking about diversity and inclusion efforts, the first step in developing some confidence or some idea about diversity and inclusion is understanding who you are as an individual. And so that is the first thing we try to provide some education on and support for with our students, is developing their sense of self-awareness. Additionally, building community. Again, the pandemic has really kept us from being able to have a sort of a community environment in our office. And we look forward to being able to recreate that during the fall semester. And so any point in time, you can come into our office and see a number of students just hanging out. So typically what will happen, we'll see a number of our student leaders come into the office, and then they'll end up bringing their friends, and then it becomes a hangout for them. Being able to have a space where students can come in and feel like they belong is a very big part of what our office does. And lastly, social justice. And so this is very important to really traditional college age students that we see coming into the university environment. They want to be social change agents, and they can learn to do that in a very structured way within our office. And so we want them to learn about the history of activism and things like that that have happened within the United States. But we also want to teach them how to be leaders in these efforts in more effective ways as well. And so this is sort of our office in terms of its broader mission and efforts. And I'll go on and talk a little bit more about our individual programs. So we have our programs really split into 3 different areas. And the first one is our programming boards. So our programming boards are designed to do more large scale programs. And so each of the groups that you'll see, they are definitely more social in terms of their everyday engagement with students. And they typically have more moving parts in terms of what students can do by their involvement. Of course, they're all different in terms of their aims and focuses, but they all help to serve as more of your traditional student leader opportunities within our office. So the first one I want to highlight is our Black Student Awareness Committee. Our Black Student Awareness Committee is probably the oldest program that is within our office in terms of its time here at UAB. The Black Student Awareness Committee was actually created in the 1980s. And so what the Black Student Awareness Committee's job is to make sure that we are doing programs to highlight Black culture and Black experiences just across the Black diaspora. And so when school starts, they'll do some really social activities. So they'll have a back to school barbecue. We have a program called Umoja, which is designed to be a Black student welcome on campus. And so what we do is we shuttle students to the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And we have a whole program laid out for them where students who are coming, there's drummers greeting them as they're coming into the BCRI. We've had the mayor speak at that event. We have our vice president of student affairs, our chief diversity officer. And this is really just a welcome program for Black students. Again, trying to focus on their retention and graduation as well. Because something at that event that we do is we give them invitations to their graduation 4 years from now, just so we can give them the aspect that we expect for you to graduate from UAB. So there's meaningful experiences through the Black Student Awareness Committee. They also do panel discussions, really highlighting issues that may affect their everyday lives, giving them space to talk about issues that affect Black people. And even there's some partnerships and some fun things that they do. Particularly, they are the host of our annual Camille Armstrong Step Show. So it's a scholarship step show where the funds go directly to supporting scholarships for students who are pre-law. And so Black Student Awareness Committee does a myriad of things to support sort of Black student life on campus. And they are a dynamic group of students in terms of their programming. Our Social Justice Advocacy Council is really a programming board that really runs the larger perspective around diversity and inclusion. So different from our Black Student Awareness Committee, who is focused on issues specifically connected to Black people, the Social Justice Advocacy Council has a much broader perspective. And so what they'll do is, whatever are the pertinent sort of social justice issues at the time, they will do some programming and activities for. Additionally, for our registered student organizations on campus, they provide direct administrative and financial support for those individual organizations. And I think the cool thing about the Social Justice Advocacy Council, they're really two groups in one. And so there's the programming aspect where they're just really doing diversity programs and events. And then there's the sort of cultural support piece where they look for student groups on campus that represent someone specific. So it may be our Korean student organization, it may be our women's group on campus. They look to support those in their programming to help make those programs or to help make the students involved in those programs have a more dynamic experience. And so students really get a chance to learn how to be involved in some administrative pieces because they are administering funding to other student groups here on campus. In addition to developing programs and activities for their peers on campus. This group is typically full of students who are very socially conscious. One program that I can think of that really impressed me and even made me think was a few years ago during the height of the Me Too movement, they wanted to find ways to talk about it without students having to necessarily talk with other people about that experience. And so they put out a call to campus for students to anonymously talk about their experience in dealing with issues that surrounded Me Too movement. And they created a visual gallery for students walking into the Hill Center that if they choose to want to learn more about issues that are involved in the Me Too movement, they could hear these personal narratives and stories from their peers. And so that's just an example of some of the dynamic programming that they've been able to do through our office. Our newest programming group is Queer Peers. And Queer Peers started 2 years ago in response to hearing from our LGBT students about needing some opportunities to build community on campus. So there are some registered student orgs to support LGBT students, but they were then provide consistent opportunities to do that. And so by supporting them in our office, we were able to provide some consistency from year to year in terms of engaging our LGBT students. And so this has been our fastest growing program in the office, to be honest, even with the pandemic happening and us not having the sort of engagement that we've had previously with students in terms of their programs and activities. Queer Peers didn't miss a beat. They were still engaging a number of students through their programs and activities. And so if students who come to campus who are looking for community and connecting with other LGBT folks, Queer Peers is a great program for them to connect with and make them feel welcome here on campus. Next is our mentorship programs. And so mentorship initiatives in a multicultural office are pretty standard. And we have two of them. And I'll talk a little bit more about why we have those two programs. But they look to provide support and more specifically support the transition of students as they are coming in as freshman students. So first is our BMAN program. The Blaze of Male Excellence Network is a program that's been around for 11 years now and has actually received some national recognition in terms of its efforts of supporting Black male students in their retention and graduation. So its development really came out of sort of the national discourse around Black male students not being retained and not graduating on college campuses. And so nationally, Black males graduated roughly 39%, and that's 6-year graduation rates, and that's well below just about any other group. At UAB, during the infancy of this program, graduation rates were around 29%. And so hence we were created a program to help support the retention and graduation of Black male students here on campus. And the program has had a chance to graduate a little over 300 students since its inception. And so we're really proud of the work that BMAN has been able to do in terms of connecting Black male students with other successful Black male students in terms of their retention and graduation. Those those students who are successful have the opportunity to be paired up with an incoming freshman student and mentor them throughout their first year. Additionally, we have a course to support their transition to campus, which is taught by a faculty member within the African American Studies program. But BMAN, again, really its overall goal is to make sure that Black men who are entering UAB are able to be successful and be retained. One of the unintended consequences that we've seen from BMAN is that by providing these opportunities for students, they feel more connected to campus, hence their involvement, particularly in leadership experiences, increases. So we've had 3 USGA presidents that have come out of BMAN over the years, and that is not typical at most predominantly white college campuses. And so we're very proud of the work that BMAN has done here. Next, we have our international mentoring program, which was created in the 90s, actually. And really, it was created in response to us having a larger number of international students coming to campus and not having sort of that social support for them once they came to campus. And so helping international students do things like find cell phones, find housing opportunities, be able to connect with someone who speaks the same language as them. And so similar to BMAN, International Mentors pairs a current student with an incoming international student. And really their job is just to help them feel welcome, really be their first friend as they enter campus. And for our mentors, what a cultural experience it is for them as they get a chance to form an authentic relationship with someone who is not from the United States. One thing I want to highlight about our international mentoring program, in terms of who our student leaders are involved with this, they are typically very high achieving, as well as what we would call your global ambassador types. And so many of our international mentors are bilingual or even trilingual, and they are very committed to the international community. And so international mentors has been a vital piece of what we do in terms of diversity efforts on our campus, and which has even been more enhanced as UAB has demonstrated a bigger commitment to not only recruit international students, but to also create a more international presence in terms of sort of the engagement opportunities for students on campus. And so it's not enough for us to have just international students being here. We want to make sure that everyone is connecting, and that students who are attending, domestic students who are attending, also have an opportunity to have a global experience. Next is our education dialogue programs. And so I mentioned at the beginning is that a big part of what we do is provide these educational opportunities. So if you have a student who is very interested in leading conversations, very interested in being an educator themselves, anything that is connected to that, the cool thing about our education and dialogue initiatives is that we teach you how to facilitate conversation. We teach you how to be an effective educator. We teach you the tenets of dialogue, which is very much needed from a societal standpoint, in terms of the many differences that we see in sort of day-to-day interactions, as well as the political environment. And so these are some of the really tangible skills in addition to the education they get from a diversity and inclusion standpoint by participating in these programs. So the first one I want to highlight is free food for thought. And it is similar to its name. We will have a program what is really designed to engage students around some taboo topic. So we've had conversations around immigration. We've done conversations around women in power. All these conversations that people typically, consider not polite conversations to have in sort of day-to-day interactions with one another, but are still very important. we try to provide space for that to happen. And so students who come to this program, we provide free food at each session, and the student leaders will facilitate a conversation around whatever topic it is that they've decided to discuss during that time. And it's always something that is designed to be a challenge. So again, our student leaders are specifically trained to have these conversations. And so we don't want to create hostile environments. What we want to do is create environments where dialogue can really prosper. Nor do we expect for students to participate in this program and agree. We want to make sure there's civil discourse happening through this program in particular. And a great way to do that is to break bread with one another. So if you want your student to, really gain these skills or be able to meet people different than them and may have different perspectives than them, and it not be such a tense sort of situation, Free Food for Thought is a great place to do that. Additionally, if your student is very much interested in having these conversations, or if they're having these conversations with you and you're not interested in having them, when they come to college, they can really have a space to do that. When I think about the students who have been involved with Free Food for Thought, they are very much, and I'm speaking about our facilitators, they are very much like your coffee house type students, where they're very much engaged in intellectual discourse. And they're very thoughtful students. I have to really make sure that I thought about what I'm going to say when I'm going to have a conversation with this group of students. They are very dynamic, very bright group of students. And so definitely a great program for your students to get involved with. Safe Zone. So Safe Zone has been around our campus for quite some time as well, particularly with our faculty and staff is where it started. And once our office was created in 2013, we were able to create a Safe Zone program specifically for students. And so the Safe Zone training initiatives for faculty and staff still exist, but just not within our office, even though we have similar content that we're sharing across campus. And what Safe Zone is designed to do is to provide education around LGBT folks. And so again, similar to our other programs, Safe Zone is led by our students. So they help build the curriculum. They, of course, working with our advisor though. They help build the curriculum. They learn how to be facilitators, and they deliver education 3 times a semester to their peers in open trainings. They also will take requests. So we may get a training request from a student organization. They may get a Safe Zone training request from them. And then they'll go and do education with them. Typically, our more seasoned Safe Zone educators will be the ones to kind of head up everything, because again, we really believe in empowering our students. And so we'll pick a group of really leads for this initiative, and they'll really set the tone for the year in terms of the education that they plan to do. Again, one of those tangible things that I think people miss by these opportunities to be a facilitator is that these are skills that you can take with you beyond your leadership experience that are very tangible. If anyone is interested in being a professor, being an educator of any type, I highly encourage you to get involved with programs like Safe Zone, because it puts you in front of people. It's kind of low risk, low stakes. So you'll be much more prepared when there's much higher stakes. Say you're going on a med school interview. Say you're interviewing to get into a graduate school, or you're interviewing for a job. Students who are able to learn how to go through programs and be facilitators are much more comfortable doing that. So not only are students doing a great job of educating their peers about LGBT folks, but they're also gaining these very important skills that help them beyond their time as student leaders. Lastly, we have our group of diversity peer educators. Their job is to do general diversity trainings for students across campus. And so one way that they do this is we have our freshman year experience classes. Excuse me. And in those freshman year experience classes, the instructors will often ask us to do a diversity activity with them. Our diversity peer educators group are the ones who will typically do the trainings. Sometimes it will be a staff member, but typically we try to provide opportunities for students to lead these conversations. So their job as a diversity peer educator is to do these introductory diversity sort of trainings and activities. And so they would take their peers and teach them about difference. And so when we talk about diversity, a lot of times we have a hard time defining it, but diversity is really just difference. And talk about the dynamics of those different. So how are the experiences of people who may be different than you based on those experiences just in everyday life? And so we provide the education and training to prepare them to do that. And again, similar to Safe Zone, students who participate as peer educators are able to develop these skills that they can take sort of beyond their leadership experience. And so just really a great opportunity for students to, if they're passionate about social justice, if they're passionate about diversity education, they can share this with their peers and help affect social change that way. Or if one of their sort of broader outcomes is to, hey, I want to learn how to be an effective speaker in front of people. I'm nervous about speaking in front of crowds of people. You want them to develop these skills in college. And so all of these education initiatives gives them an opportunity to get in front of people. Again, it's low stakes they may not feel like it at the time, but it's pretty low stakes compared to if you were going out for a job interview or if you were doing a presentation for a grad school program or again, med school program. These things are pretty low stakes, and we just want to make sure students leave out of our office with a great experience. So to kind of wrap things up, you may be asking, how can students get involved in our office? Certainly, once classes start in the fall, they will be inundated with information from many of our offices about opportunities for them to get involved on campus. That includes programs within our office. If students are interested in being student leaders, there are a few ways to do that. So typically what we do is every spring, we put out applications, and pretty much every program within sort of a specific division of student affairs area will put out a call for student leader applications. They would go through that application process like anyone else and select the programs in our office to participate in. And then we would interview them, and then they could be student leaders in our office. Another way for incoming freshman students to be involved in our office is to sign up as a freshman representative. Particularly with our Black Student Awareness Committee, as well as our Social Justice Advocacy Council. So they specifically pick freshman students to serve as freshman reps with their groups. These are students who feel comfortable getting involved very early in their freshman year. It doesn't mean that you can't be involved in our office if you're not a freshman rep. Just typically it's reserved for students who demonstrate that they can transition effectively their first year and still be an involved student. Another way for students to get involved their freshman year as a peer educator is to participate in our Safe Zone trainings. So students who participate in all three of the trainings that we have during that fall semester will be junior educators. And so Safe Zone educators will start to really mentor them into becoming effective educators. And typically those students roll into being full Safe Zone educators that next year. You don't have to do that to become a Safe Zone educator, but that is a great transition for students to learn a little bit and participate in the trainings and then be a facilitator. So please encourage your students to get involved in our office. Here is some contact information for myself. We are located in the Hill Student Center, room 311. We miss students severely. So we are excited to see their faces come into the office. We look forward to connecting with them and being able to support them in any way that we can. If you want to learn a little bit more about our office, our website is here, uab.edu/diversity. And if you are interested, in participating as a mentee in our BMAN program, I didn't mention this earlier. We're looking for students now. We're recruiting students now. You'll get a contact from us if you identify as a Black male, from our coordinator Sharifa Whip. But if you have questions before then, definitely reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer those for you. And that is all I have. And I'll pause for any questions anyone may have.
Chris, thank you so much. As our family members and participants are thinking of their questions, again, reminder for those of you that are joining us through the Zoom platform, if you'll put those questions into that Q&A function that you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And then for those of you that are watching us via Facebook Live, all you have to do there is put your questions into the chat function, because we are monitoring both areas. And as people are still, you've provided so much great information, Chris, about all of the opportunities and programs and services that your area really is able to cover, and the types of students and populations you work with and the types of education you try to provide all across campus. And one of the things I'm kind of curious about is, where do you think is the biggest misconception or misperception that students may have about your office? And then so that we can start to help, family members can help share that, to correct that information with their student.
Sure. I think that when people, and this is for obvious reason, when people hear student multicultural and diversity programs, they think it's for people of color only. And that is simply not true. We actually looked at the demographics of our programs and activities over this past year. And they're pretty representative of the general student population in terms of the engagement in regards to students who are coming to our programs. One thing to understand about diversity, and this is just really, how we approach doing this work, is that, as I mentioned earlier, diversity just means difference. And those differences affect how we are seen within the world, but everybody has a race, everybody has a gender, everyone is involved in these conversations. And so if you're having these conversations just with underrepresented groups, then you're kind of missing out on the point of being able to connect with people who are different than you. Additionally, again, I try to make these things tangible, especially for parents and families, because you want your student to come and gain all these valuable skills and get a great education while they're here. A big part of that is preparing them to enter the workforce and enter a world that is much different than, I'm only 35 years old, and the world is will be much different for students once they graduate in 4 years than even I recognized when I first graduated as an undergrad. So preparing your student to be able to engage with difference and be comfortable with that, in a world that is growing, that's just that much diverse in many ways. Like, people often just think race a lot of times, but we have multi-generations in the workplace right now. And our student body is also representative of that. So just a great opportunity for them to connect with a myriad of diversity here on campus.
That's so well described and incorporated as far as like what our campus is like and how you all are connecting and sharing with that. So there was this, I'm not sure if this is a student or a family member that's put in there, but what do they need to do if they haven't received any information from you yet? Do they need to contact you, or especially I know for like the BMAN, you said you'll just reach out?
If they want to email me directly, I will certainly respond to emails. But what they're doing now is we've received the information of the students. And so emails are going out, and eventually there'll be phone calls. But if you haven't heard anything, definitely email me at jonesc1@uab.edu, and I'll be glad to help. If this is about BMAN, or even if it's about something else, I am more than willing to talk to anyone about any of our programs or services.
There is a new question that came in there. Is there a difference between this diversity platform and then platforms that are specifically for international students?
It is. And so we serve international students through our international mentoring program. But there is an International Student Scholar Services office that is not part of the Division of Student Affairs. They handle the more technical pieces for international students, so visas, some of the just administrative pieces. We don't deal with sort of university compliance or administrative pieces. Our job is to make sure that incoming international students feel supported socially, and that they get integrated to campus and to the city. And so we train our peer mentors to be able to help with things like showing students around campus, connecting them with other students that may be connected to the culture that they're interested in. We have a number of religious representation on our campus. And so, if a student is from another country and there's not much religious representation that is the dominant religion in that country, like those students will help connect them with those experiences on our campus.
That's perfect. Thank you. Chris, I think one of the things that I'm curious about, especially as we're talking to potentially a lot of family members of incoming new students, and I think that there's a lot of concern sometimes from our family members about getting engaged and getting over engaged at a timeline that maybe the student isn't ready to kind of go fully over on the diving board. So can you talk to me about kind of like some of the engagement levels or time commitments, I guess I should say, that come from participating in some of your groups?
Sure. So again, most of our student leader opportunities are designed for second year students and beyond. So we will have an application process in the spring semester, but those students will have done a whole semester here already before they even apply to be a student leader, unless they're a freshman rep. And I can tell you now, we screen the freshman reps to make sure that this isn't something that will be a burden on them being successful their first year as a student. But just a general rule of thumb I would give anyone, any student coming into campus, is to think about what are the things that you feel are important to you and just go to those events. You don't have to sign up to necessarily do anything. Again, our job is to connect with as many students as we can through our programs and activities. So, that first 4 weeks of school, there'll be a number of things that you can do. Just go to stuff, and find out where it is you want to connect with. If students come in, I'll give our BMAN program, for example. Like, we'll have students sign up to participate, and they'll have a great experience as a mentee, but their passion ends up being USGA, and maybe they don't come back to serve as a mentor with us. But one thing that we will push is that find something that you want to connect to, find things that you feel you are passionate about. Like the current Mr. UAB was a BMAN mentee in our program. And he's done USGA. He's all over the place as an upperclassman now. But we made sure to expose him to as much as he could. And once he got to become a sophomore, he figured out what was important to him. So just any opportunity for students to come and get connected to campus is a good thing, but they don't have to come and just join a million clubs. I would discourage them from doing that, but there's no risk in just going to the BSAC barbecue. There's no risk in going to, the international welcome party and meeting people. I would encourage them to do those sort of things.
In fact, I can share, because those are elements that fall under a program that we have here at UAB that's called, I apologize, I may sneeze in the middle of this statement. Excuse me. that fall under the category or part of the Blazer Welcome program, which is a series of events and programs for our family members and students that happened during the first 4 weeks of class. And our students were participating in just an event during that Blazer Welcome program, which is some of the things that Christopher talked about. Those students are finding that sense of community and finding that sense of belonging at a much higher level than our students who don't participate. About 76% of our students who participated in just one program said that they had a sense of community from that. And that's what keeps, as Chris is saying, that's what keeps our students here. That's what keeps them engaged in the university community, gets them engaged in their classroom, and then they succeed. And then also students who participated in at least one Blazer Welcome event also had a higher GPA at both the end of their fall and spring semesters. So it makes a difference. And so if any of these things that Chris is putting out there or anything else is something that you're a student or you would be interested in doing, make sure that you get out there and try it, because that would be without a doubt the best thing to see, because there are things all over the place for students to connect with and engage with. Chris, you have shared some super invaluable information throughout today's presentation. Your office is always amazing me because of the intentionality and the types of programming that you're providing to our students. And I get to work with your students that are currently participating in programs, have participated in programs, or looking to be a part of the programs. And they're just, as you said, they are high functioning, phenomenal students. And so thank you for all the work that you do on campus. And thank you truly for taking the time today to chat with our family members and potentially some of their students as well, to share with us all about the resources and opportunities that are available to our students from the moment they get here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
I really appreciate it. For our families, we are going to, this has been a recorded presentation. So if you want to share this with anyone after today's session, note that you can go to our Facebook page immediately after this presentation, or it will be up on the family's website within the next week. So it is out there for you to be able to view as well for later times. But thank you so very much, Chris. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of the day.